All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is J Kozak, and I'm the Prevention Grants Coordinator from the Kodiak Area Native Association. And I'm here today to discuss some proposed improvements to our tobacco quit kit distribution system. Before we get started, I want to say thank you to everyone for taking the time to participate in or view this presentation. All of you were invited to be a part of this because you are in some way impacted by our quick hit distribution system, whether that is as a community advocate who supports our efforts and wants to see this program continue to grow and expand, or as a community partner who actively receives and distributes quick hits and educational information. So again, thank you for taking the time. And with that, we will go ahead and get started. So first, I wanted to provide a basic overview of the situation that has led us to this point where we need to begin making process improvements. So internally, we're finding that some of our program supplies are running out, which is forcing us to halt or suspend the assembly of quick kits, because without those critical supplies, we can't put more together. While at the same time, we have other materials that we're developing big stockpiles of, whether that's because they're outdated or because they're just not used as frequently. We're having issues with purchasing and ordering the correct amount of the correct supplies, essentially. Along with that, we've noticed that when we distribute quick kits and other materials, which is in itself kind of a haphazard system that we'll talk about in a few minutes, we've noticed that some of our partners are completely out of quick kits while others end up having a surplus. The details aside, these issues, both the internal and the external ones, are essentially resulting in the same outcomes, which is that time, money, and space are all being wasted. So to get at the cause of these problems, we utilize the 5 whys system of root cause analysis. Essentially, the way 5 whys works is that you examine a problem. So in this case, why are we running out of some materials? Why are partner organizations running out of quick kits? Why are we developing stockpiles? Why do they have surpluses? So looking at those issues and asking the question, why? Why is this happening? And then doing so in sequence. So, why did organizations run out of quick kits? Well, they have different rates of distribution. So why did different rates result in shortages? Following through on this, and going through this process, we're able to dig deeper every time we ask the question why to get at the underlying cause of the issues. So after looking at those 5 whys analyses, as well as other information, we essentially came up with the following conclusions. On the supply side, we found that our operations had expanded, but the purchasing system stayed the same. It hadn't grown with the scope of our operation. Essentially, previously we've been using a single period inventory model. So at the beginning of the fiscal year, when we received our grant money, we would purchase all the supplies we needed for the entire year. That system is no longer functioning. It's resulting in shortages in some areas, surpluses in others. It's not meeting our actual need. On the distribution side, we found that we have an inconsistent delivery schedule. So some partner organizations will receive visits and restocking of their quick kits every month or every other month. Some will have to wait 3 or 4 months. And even within the same organization, we can have one that receives quick kits in February, in March, and then in September. So there's a lack of reliability and regularity to the delivery schedule. Along with that, the communication channels with our partners are minimal at best. And previously, we've been using a pure push vendor managed inventory model, which is essentially we decide when our partner organizations will get more quick kits. And there was no way for them to communicate when they were out, and we weren't making that effort either. So issues with communication. And finally, despite the fact that we were saying we'll decide when you need more quick kits, we weren't keeping any data or information about when they might actually need more quick kits, about how frequently they distribute them, how often they need to be restocked. We didn't have that information. So following that analysis and determining these kind of root causes, what's the next step? Well, the next step is process improvement. So before we dig into the proposed plan of how we're going to go about improving this process, I wanted to remind everyone of one of the big issues, and that's the idea of what we've always done it this way. So whenever process improvement comes up, there's always the argument that this isn't the way we've done things, this is too different, this isn't going to work, we should fix the system that we have, we should just try and make it better, make it fit. And one of the things I want to remind everyone of is the idea that if we don't fix things, things will never get better. The current system we have is completely dysfunctional. It's going to continue experiencing issues. And as partner organizations change and shift, as we try to expand our reach to include more community partners, the system is going to continue to experience more and more problems until eventually it's going to collapse. So we have to begin making these changes, even if it seems daunting. So with that in mind, how do we actually solve the issues? Well, to solve them, we're proposing the following. First, we're going to create and develop an inventory and tracking system for all of our supplies so that we can keep better track of what we have and what we need and when we need to restock. Second, we're going to develop new ordering and distribution schedules. That's going to help us avoid shortages and help us make sure that we're regularly stocking our partners when they need materials. And finally, we want to build into this from the beginning the idea of maintaining ongoing process improvement. As we add more partners, as our program shifts and changes, as our partners shift and change, this system very well could begin experiencing the issues we're currently dealing with. And so we need to maintain that ongoing process improvement. Otherwise, we're going to find ourselves in the exact same scenario that we are right now. Now, after determining the direction we wanted to go, we knew that getting our stakeholders involved, it was critical. So we conducted a stakeholder analysis. Essentially, we made a list of all the organizations that are involved in this in one way or another, whether it's as advocates, as distributors, as funders, as community partners, or even opposition. And then we rank them on the power interest matrix. So power is essentially defined as the ability to influence or make decisions regarding the project. Interest is kind of how invested in the outcome of this project individuals are. And then we also looked at determining whether or not individuals were in favor of and supportive of these efforts. Those are identified in green. The ones that are kind of on the fence are highlighted in yellow or orange. And then the red organizations are those which have historically been somewhat oppositional and which we can expect a less than warm reception from. So as a specific example to kind of show how this chart works, in the upper left corner, you'll see medical organizations. We listed them as being high power because they can decide if they're going to accept quit kits, and they can also decide if they're going to help provide feedback about their need, which is critical to the development of the distribution schedule. Furthermore, we put them in green because historically medical organizations have been very supportive of our efforts. On the opposite side of the chart, in the bottom right corner, we listed CHAR in red. CHAR is an association of restaurants, bars, hotels, and other establishments in that vein. And historically, they've been more or less opposed to efforts that would seem judgmental. So some members of CHAR, influential members of that, want to allow their establishments to have smoking policies. And in order to maintain unity within the association, they have put pressure on other organizations, other restaurants, other establishments, not to support our efforts. So they're considered somewhat oppositional. Now, that being said, with regard to quit kits, we don't ask a whole lot out of restaurants and bars and things, so they're considered a low power option, but they have a high level of interest in this because they believe it affects their business outcomes. Now, once the stakeholder analysis was completed, we made a list of all the tasks that had to be completed in order for this project to be successful. And then we put that into a work breakdown structure table. So in this case, we created one for supply purchasing, which is on the screen now, and we broke it down into the project at level 1. Level 2 is those core tasks, and you'll see on the far right that each core task has an estimated completion time on it. So for example, the first task to fix the supply purchasing system is creating an inventory system. That has a couple subtasks, which can be found in level 3, and overall it's estimated to take us about 3 days or so. Moving down, we find that, assessing the current usage rate, we figure that will take us about 3 months. That will give us a good baseline. We can develop a moving average in order to predict future need. So that way we can hopefully have more accurate figures when we're placing supply orders. After that's done and we have that baseline, create the ordering schedule, and then we plan for about a 6-month implementation and evaluation process. Here's the second work breakdown structure table. This is specifically for the distribution system. So in this case, our first step is contacting our partner organizations and beginning to collect information and data about their need and the frequency of use. Following that, we're going to create our new distribution schedule, and then again, roughly a 6-month period of implementation and evaluation. Along with these work breakdown structure tables, we utilize the CPM method to put together kind of a timeline in a workflow. So in this case, we said that our very first step, creating that inventory system, take about 3 days. Then as we were examining this, we determined that the majority of the other tasks could all be run concurrently. So we split the CPM workflow into kind of 2 directions, the upper and the lower track. The only real deviation is the creation of the distribution schedule. Due to its increased complexity over the ordering schedule, we figure it will take us about 10 days or so, as opposed to the 5 days for the ordering schedule. Because of that upper track A, B, D, F, H is going to take, estimated to be a couple days longer. So that's identified as the critical path to make sure that everything is on track. Now, before we close, I wanted to discuss stakeholder engagement a little bit. As I said at the outset, all of you are here because you're involved in this project in one way or another. And we want to make sure that you are involved from the get-go. That's why we're here discussing the changes we're going to make, why we're making them, what we're planning to do specifically. And we want to make sure that you understand what we are committing to do as part of this process. So first, we're committing to maintaining good communication channels, whether that's over email, phone, in person, whatever it might be. We're committing to maintaining those communication channels. Along with that, we're promising that we're going to develop a new distribution schedule. So we're going to put together a system, and then we're going to stick to it. So once we have this schedule that says you are going to receive new quick hits once a month at some point during the 3rd week of the month, then we are going to stick to that. We're going to deliver materials regularly and consistently, because that's not only going to make sure that we are running more efficiently, but it's also going to help you run more efficiently. Now, we're also asking you to support us in the following ways. First, we want you to track your usage of materials. So find out how often you are giving out quick hits and other information, and then provide that information to us. It's going to be extremely difficult for us to build a distribution schedule if we're not receiving any information about how often you're using materials or how often you need to be restocked. And then finally, as you saw, we built in about a 6-month period for implementation and evaluation. There's going to be a lot of fine-tuning in this process. It's not going to be 100% accurate straight off the bat. So we want to make sure that you're comfortable contacting us when there are problems or issues, so that we can solve this by working together. Now, I want to leave you all with one final thought, and that is essentially that Mark Twain said, continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection. Essentially, This is going to be a long, drawn-out process. As you saw in the work breakdown structures and the CPM flow, we have nearly a year planned out to make sure this project works. There's going to be frustration, there's going to be issues, but as long as we're working together, as long as we're maintaining those good communication pathways and working cohesively, then we can make a system that is going to function better for our program, your program, and hopefully will help provide a better service to the people that we serve and to our community. Thank you all for taking the time to view this presentation. I am available for any questions that anyone might have. Thank you.